Today, we're diving into Nepal's massive state support system for its farmers. The government pours billions into all sorts of programs, subsidies, loans, modernization projects. But here's the central question. Is all this investment actually a lifeline for farmers, or has it created a bureaucratic labyrinth that's almost impossible to navigate? Let's get into the analysis.
Okay, so first things first, let's establish the stakes here. Agriculture is, quite literally, the foundation of Nepali society. It's the main source of work for a staggering 62% of all households in the country. This isn't just a sector of the economy, it's the basis of life for the majority of the population. But here's the paradox at the heart of this whole story. Even though it employs most of the country, agriculture's contribution to the national GDP has shrunk all the way down to just 24%. That massive disconnect between the number of people working and the economic output, well, that points to a really deep systemic problem with productivity. To really understand what's going on, we're going to break our analysis down into 5 key parts. We'll start with that paradox we just mentioned, then we'll look at the government's grand plan to fix it. After that, we'll follow the money into subsidies and loans, check out the broken systems for insurance and mechanization, and finally, we'll look at what a real path forward might look like. So why this struggle? I mean, why would a nation full of farmers have a hard time feeding itself? Well, the challenges are all tangled up together. You have mass labor migration, which creates a worker shortage. The people who do remain are often using very traditional farming methods on really small plots of land. That combination makes it incredibly difficult to turn a profit, or sometimes even to just achieve food security. Now, the government's answer to all of this is a massive initiative. It's called the Prime Minister Agriculture Modernization Project, or PMAPMP for short. And this is the centerpiece of the entire national strategy. And when I say massive, I mean it. We are talking about a $1.12 billion decade-long project that's designed to be a total game changer. On paper, its goals are exactly what the country needs: to modernize, commercialize, and mechanize the whole sector to finally achieve self-sufficiency. This slide right here, this is basically our roadmap for the rest of the analysis. It lays out the 4 key pillars of state support. You see the stated goals, and then you see the documented reality. And that huge gap between the intention and the actual outcome, that is the labyrinth that we're about to explore. So, one of the crucial problems is a fundamental flaw in the design. The PMAMP is very top-down, very centralized. It tries to apply this one-size-fits-all model to a country with incredibly diverse geography. This plain bias basically means the policies are designed for the flatlands, and they often fail the smallholder farmers in the hilly regions, who, by the way, make up the majority. All right, now let's get into the financial pillars of this whole system. It's time to follow the money, starting with the 2 biggest components, direct subsidies and affordable loans. The scale of the spending here is just immense. In just the last 5 years, the Nepali government has allocated 107 billion Nepalese rupees. That's nearly $1 billion just for agricultural subsidies. But where is all that money actually going? Well, it's heavily concentrated. A staggering 81% of the entire subsidy budget is spent on one thing: chemical fertilizers. That really raises some serious questions about whether the investment is balanced or if it's just propping up a single input at the expense of everything else. And this is where you start to see some of the system's biggest contradictions. The government charges only a 1% tax to import a brand new tractor. But if that tractor breaks down, the spare parts to fix it are hit with a 15% tax plus a 13% VAT. It's a policy that actively discourages maintenance and really only benefits the importers, not the working farmers. Now for the other side of the financial coin, cheap capital. The big government program is called Sulyatspurna Karja. It's a subsidized loan, and the whole idea is to give farmers the cash they need to invest and modernize their operations. However, the program has a massive problem. According to Nepal's own central bank, over 30% of these subsidized loans are either misused or diverted away from agriculture altogether and into other sectors. So what you end up with is this really damaging 2-tiered system. The people who are well-connected can get this cheap government money pretty easily for their own benefit. Meanwhile, the actual small farmers, the ones who can't navigate the bureaucracy or don't have the right collateral, they get shut out, and they're forced to turn to predatory loan sharks, trapping them in a cycle of debt.
All right, let's now look at the other key pillars of support. These are the systems that were designed to manage risk and provide access to modern technology. Now, the government offers an incredibly generous subsidy for agricultural insurance. They cover 80% of the premium cost. You'd think with a deal that good, every single farmer in the country would be signed up, but they're not. And here's a perfect example of why. The new digital solution, this system called Alice, is a digital labyrinth. Just look at this process. For a farmer who might have low digital literacy or spotty internet, trying to navigate all these complex steps, it's nearly impossible. Instead of simplifying things, it just creates another massive barrier. The government's main strategy for getting more machines on farms is to create these custom hiring centers, or CHCs, where farmers can rent equipment. It's a great idea in theory. In practice, however, most of these centers are failing because they just don't have sustainable business models and they're poorly managed. This slide really highlights the core problem. You can call it the fragmentation effect. A farmer might get a subsidized machine, which is great, but the support just stops there. When it inevitably breaks, that contradictory tax policy makes the parts way too expensive, and the loan system is too bureaucratic to get a simple loan for repairs. Each government program operates in its own silo, totally disconnected, and it creates this chain of failure for the end user. Okay, so now that we've identified all these systemic problems, the big question is, what are the potential solutions? How do you turn this labyrinth into something that actually provides effective support? The system's failure can really be broken down into 4 key dimensions. You have the labyrinth of access, where all the bureaucratic hurdles shut out the most vulnerable people. There's the labyrinth of implementation, this huge gap between the policy goals and what actually happens in practice. You've got the labyrinth of politics, where contradictory laws just undermine each other. And finally, all of this leads to a deep crisis of mistrust in the very institutions that are supposed to be helping.
So the path forward really requires a fundamental shift. Application processes need to be radically simplified. Support systems have to be integrated. You link a subsidy with training and affordable parts. You have to reform policies to make them consistent, like harmonizing taxes. And critically, you have to rebuild trust through transparency and by empowering local communities to manage their own resources.
And this leaves us with a final critical question. The system's failures aren't just random accidents. They're the results of specific policy choices and designs. So the ultimate challenge is this. Can a labyrinth this complex truly be reformed, piece by piece? Or does the entire thing need to be dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up, with the farmer, not the bureaucracy, at its absolute center?